This is AchieveRadio.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AchieveRadio.
What a beautiful day to be alive. My debt is paid and more money arrives. The fridge is full and there's plenty of ice for a fireside chat with anyone I like. What a beautiful day, good to be here when almost everyone is disappeared.
Yes, the other line.
Waiting in line. It's good to meet you in this world of mine.
Welcome, everybody. We are live with Dr. Carolyn Dean, MD, ND, the Doctor of the Future, right here, right now on AchieveRadio.com. So glad you're with us, whether you're here in person at this very present moment or you are listening through our archives. To the recording at any point in eternity that you may be joining us, we are happy that you are here. And I just want to say congratulations to everybody who survived the hype of that ridiculous eclipse. I've never, honestly, people are fickle. I don't know what the big hubbub was about, but in my particular part of the world, which is North Carolina, where I was supposed to see everything, I saw nothing, and it just seemed like there was a cloud over the sun for like 10 minutes, and I don't get it. But the most important thing is you survived the eclipse, and now you're here this evening to hang out with Dr. Carolyn Dean, who's probably the most important person to be hanging out with if you care about your health, your vitality, and your well-being, because she has so many answers. Oh, my gosh. She has the right perspective. She's got amazing information. She's got incredible formulas. She's got so much jam-packed into that brain of hers, and she's willing to roll it out on your behalf, not only through her radio show, which she does every Monday evening as you've been joining us, but also through her books and her Kindle books and all of her written resources and her blogs, all of which, any topic, you can just Google her name, Dr. Carolyn Dean, and then type in the topic of your question, and you will inevitably find her counsel and her wisdom right there on the Internet. And it's so funny. I even had I told a customer that a week ago, and she literally called me back and said, wow. Like she could not even believe how much information Carolyn has laid out, all for free. It might as well be a public service out of the generosity of her heart and out of the sincerity of her heart and her desire that you really know what you're doing and what you're putting in your mouth and how it's impacting your body. So as supplements, food, exercise, treatment plans, every single thing she's got a really unique perspective on, and her perspective comes from interacting with so many people all over the world. It's not just localized to her little corner office, but she's interacting with people all over the world. We're so happy to have her with us this evening. And before I bring her on, I just want to remind you that she is a medical doctor and a naturopath. She's authored and co-authored over 35 books, including The Magnesium Miracle, the 2017 edition, which is knocking people's socks off and on Amazon right now. Get it. And also she's just been a counselor to so many people. She has a heart of gold and just the most sincere and sweet person. I just love her, and we're so happy to have her here with us this evening. So without any further ado, let me introduce Dr. Carolyn Dean. Yay! Because I don't have my yay button, Carolyn.
Oh, that's so funny because I can't talk without the yay, so I got your yay and your beautiful singing voice. Thank you so much. And thanks for the introduction. Yes, we've got a jam-packed show today. Our modus operandi now is to make sure we have enough to say so that we don't let Bob in, because once we start slacking off and the phones aren't ringing and the people aren't calling, the chat line goes dead, then Bob starts talking. So we have to be careful about that because he'll drag his cash flow show into my show. So we can't have any of that, and we will get right to work on Ginny's blog. Ginny's blog goes out once a week on Mondays to announce the show, and you can see it at drcarolyndeanlive.com. And today the title is Finally, Making Progress. So what Jenny tends to do is she'll write about the kind of the current wave of questions and information that she sees on the customer service lines and chats. And I guess we're starting to see a wave of people who say that they're making progress, and that, the finally business is, yeah, you want to make progress right away. So she says, this is what many of our testimonial letters say when customers write to us about achieving their health goals using the Total Body Reset. Quote, finally, I've been stuck in a rut for years and I'm finally breaking free. Another quote, a protein powder that doesn't taste like sawdust. I love ReStructure. And another quote, I've been going slowly, but I finally noticed a difference in my health. And another quote, finally, after decades of studying, experimenting, and spending thousands of dollars on books, juices, massage, herbs, and vitamins in pursuit of feeling more energy, I feel I am now operating on all cylinders. I'm excited for this day and for my future. So these are all people who are just feeling more energy, feeling healthy. Chad said it the other day, I don't know if it was on the new Coach House, that Bob show on Saturday, that we all have our health. We're alive, so therefore we have some health in our body and our cells. And all we're trying to do with the Total Body Reset or any of the formulas is to give you more health. So that is our focus. Ginny's blog continues. Since we've launched the Total Body Reset January 2017, thousands of individuals are finally getting the improved health results they've desired, sometimes waiting for years to achieve them. For a time, Dr. Dean thought that the Completement formulas, Remag, Remite, Realign, ReStructure, and RNA drops were providing people with results and hope in an otherwise hopeless quest to feel better. Now, since launching the program in January, there's no doubt about it. Even when people don't have any hope, the Completement formulas provide the results. Just sidebar here. See, what we were doing before is I was mainly talking about magnesium, and I still do because it's got so many structure and function aspects to it that we can talk about it and not have to talk about disease, and we can introduce our other products through magnesium. And what we realized, just as Ginny laid out there, as people started taking the other products, they did better and better and better. So then we decided to focus on telling you all that if you took all 5 products, you could have an escalation in supporting yourself, getting your cellular health to support your total health. Back to the blog. Many of our customers are pleased with our Simple 5 formula plan. It saves you time, money, and the aggravation of following ever-changing fad diets and taking a dozen different supplements or preparing 6 meals a day to try to replenish your nutrients. Total Body Reset program is so safe and so simple that you can take all the products along with your medications and other supplements if you wish. It advises you to start low and go slow with our products, and when you start feeling better, then you can think about weaning off other supplements that you may not need anymore. Total Body Reset is about providing the highest quality nutrients to your whole body instead of just focusing on what is happening to throw your body out of balance. Dr. Dean has given you a simple approach with the 5 nutrient-dense formulas that will help you finally achieve the health goals you've always dreamed about. And it's an interesting way of, quote, selling supplements because, we're making a big statement here. We're not just trying to sell you several different things. We're not a store, in other words, that has 100 different supplements and ask you to just grab a few and use your own discretion about what's going to help you. I mean, we've done the research, gotten the feedback, take them all ourselves, and we're able to say that, if you take this handful of supplements, you will benefit. And it's a focus on cellular health, total health, which is a very naturopathic philosophy. We just believe that getting to the root cause of what's ailing people is to give the building blocks, to eat nutrient-dense foods if you can find them, because the soil is so depleted. And it's about lifestyle. We're doing a series of seminars now, or webinars with PowerPoint. We did one on diet, and there are more coming up. So we will, pass on more lifestyle information. I've got that all covered, of course, in my Completement 2-year online wellness program, Completement Now. But there's so many people just find, well, I just can't focus for 2 years on a weekly module or weekly information packet. I just want something right now. So, we're covering both sides of the picture. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and anything else that comes up. My blog for this week, I think it just got posted. It's called Calcium Supplements Linked to Many Diseases. And, this is my ongoing battle against calcium and trying to get people to focus on balancing out their magnesium and calcium. So this blog is about a Swedish study that found that older women with a history of stroke or white matter lesions, WMLs, in the brain, and they find that, when someone has dementia or Alzheimer's or symptoms thereof, they do these brain scans and find these lesions, which I think are related to mineral deficiencies and heavy metal toxicity for the most part. So the people with a history of stroke or white matter lesions who take calcium supplements have an increased risk for dementia. I don't know if the researchers factored in the amount of calcium in the diet of the study participants. Sweden has the second highest milk consumption in the world. The researchers make futile attempts to explain why calcium supplements are harmful. They also found that calcium supplementation increased the risk of myocardial infarction and stroke. These findings confirm another dozen studies that found a higher incidence of heart disease in women who take calcium supplements. Ironically, the women on calcium supplements had twice as many fractures, even though they were probably taking extra calcium to prevent broken bones. Totally ignoring their scientific findings, the researchers simply parrot previous recommendations. At the end, when they draw their conclusions, they ignore their findings and just say that calcium deficiency contributes to osteoporosis, which can result in dangerous fractures, so the elderly should keep taking their 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams of calcium daily. They don't try to understand why that message is not working to prevent bone loss. Of course, all these researchers are missing the magnesium connection. Calcium cannot build bones or prevent osteoporosis without adequate levels of magnesium. It's as simple as that. If our bones are made entirely from calcium, they become brittle and can shatter, just like a stick of calcium carbonate chalk falling on the sidewalk. However, with the right percentage of magnesium, bone has the proper density and internal matrix that actually makes it flexible and more resistant to shattering. Many elderly people are suffering bone fractures because they have too much calcium and not enough magnesium. A 2014 meta-analysis concluded that low serum magnesium is a risk factor for osteoporosis among the postmenopausal group. And then, because I can't write everything in every blog, so I say for information about the role of vitamin D and vitamin K2 and other minerals in osteoporosis, please Google your question and my name, which will produce an extensive list of blogs. As for the other conditions triggered or affected by calcium supplements, gallstones, heel spurs, breast tissue calcification, remember that sufficient magnesium keeps calcium dissolved in the blood and directs it properly to the bones so it will not precipitate in soft tissues of the body. I write the following in my Magnesium Miracle book, and it's by Dr. Guy Abraham. Okay, so the body does not take the threat of excess calcium lying down. Dr. Guy Abraham details how the body protects itself. He says that in order to protect the fluid inside the cell from becoming saturated with calcium, there's a magnesium-dependent mechanism that shunts calcium into the mitochondria. However, this can backfire because if too much calcium is taken up for too long, the excess calcium in the mitochondria inhibits ATP synthesis. Mitochondrial calcification without the intervention of sufficient magnesium eventually results in cell death. And then I ask the question, could calcium excess and magnesium deficiency be the underlying cause of mitochondrial dysfunction that many natural medicine practitioners say is the underlying cause of chronic fatigue syndrome and other chronic diseases? To try and stem the tide of body calcification, instead of 1,200 milligrams of calcium per day in very difficult to absorb calcium supplements, I follow the UK and WHO recommendations of 600 milligrams a day, which many people can achieve in their diet. I balance this with at least 600 milligrams per day of picometer ionic magnesium. And if people can't get that much calcium in their diet, then they can look at our picometer calcium supplement. And then the blog ends with an announcement of the next summit that I'm involved in from September 5th to September 16th is a Beyond Pain Summit with Dr. Audrey Schnell. So I have several more things to talk about, but what I think I'll do is go back to Ginny and see if we can grab any phone calls or chats, and then we'll intersperse these two other big topics throughout the radio show. So,
okay, sounds excellent. Let me just announce the number to call tonight if you'd like to talk with Dr. Dean is 602-666-6027. That's 602-666-6027. And that number, when you call into the studio, you've got to hit *5 on the keypad. *5 will raise your hand in the studio and let me know that you have a question or comment, and then I'll put you on the line with Dr. Dean. So if you're on the phone now and you want to talk to Dr. Dean, you've got to hit *5 on your keypad. And if you do that and I don't call on you, then go ahead and just type me a letter into the chat box, which you'll see on your computer screen. It's over on the right-hand side where it says chat or text. Just chat in there and just say, hey, Ginny, I'm on the phone and you are not calling on my number. And then that way I can pick you up that way, because sometimes people just don't get in. Okay, and then let's see what else. So I don't have any calls right now, and let's check our chat line and see how everybody's doing. We've got Nicholas here from South Africa. We've got Susie from New Zealand. We have Nancy from Portland, Oregon. We've got people from all over typing in. And are they saying anything? Not.
It's okay. I'll do mailbag then, and
okay.
We'll fit in mailbag. I mean, we can do it from all angles. So there's a question: if L-methionine increases homocysteine levels, why is it used in vitamin B blends that are used to reduce homocysteine levels? Realign, for example. So our Realign has L-methionine, L-taurine, and several methyl B vitamins. And yes, when you look at methionine, it'll say it increases homocysteine levels. But then you really have to look further. Biochemistry is pretty complex. I did 200 hours in medicine, and that was just scratching the surface. So the answer is it's a question of the cofactors, which is what helps the methionine work properly is having the cofactors of the B vitamins. So homocysteine is biosynthesized from methionine by the removal of its methyl group at the C position, terminal C. Homocysteine is then recycled back into methionine or converted into cysteine with the aid of certain B vitamins. So there it is, right there. If you don't have the Bs, then the homocysteine that's created doesn't loop back or doesn't go on to make cysteine. And in another place, just in my notes about our Realign product, I had this written, and I haven't written a Realign book yet, so these questions do come up. How do B vitamins fit into the homocysteine picture? Folate, B6, and B12, which are all in Realign, play key roles in converting homocysteine into methionine, which is one of the 20 or so building blocks from which the body builds new protein. Without enough folate, vitamin B6, and B12, this conversion process becomes inefficient and homocysteine levels increase. In turn, increasing intake of folate, B6, B12 decreases homocysteine levels. So I hope that answers the question. So I say that's why Realign has all those methylated B vitamins as well as L-methionine, which is also a precursor to glutathione, and that's why we're mainly using it. So it acts as a gentle detoxifier and also helps metabolize homocysteine. And another question, someone writes in and says, I read I should not take magnesium within 2 hours of other minerals or vitamins because it will chelate them out of my system. I use Dr. Dean's magnesium, and I wanted her opinion on that. Now, my perennial answer to that question is, well, God and nature put all the minerals together in plants. I mean, when you look at plants and, the list of what minerals and vitamins are involved, they're all, they really are all there. So you can't separate the minerals in your food. So why are you separating them in your supplements? But perhaps that will come up in the sense of kind of over-supplementing, like in hospital, if they run an IV with too much of one mineral, it'll throw other minerals off, and then all of a sudden they develop some caution about that mineral because they've put it in a very unique situation, and then they develop all these rules. And another rule that I don't even know if it's a rule or if it's just the bizarreness that someone started asking me about salt in water. You see, a lot of very strange things are getting on the internet now, and people just don't know what's real and what's not. So this person says, I read your blogs with interest, and I'm not concerned about my practice of adding salt to water. I add in the amount you advise, 1/4 teaspoon for every quart. I've been adding sea salt to water for a couple of years. I then came across this article by a Dr. Wilson in which he advises to never add salt to water because it detoxes not only metals but also beneficial minerals. What are your thoughts? So I said, this practice of adding sea salt to drinking water, the way Wilson talks about, is not what I'm talking about. The process he must be talking about, and I went to this article, and it looked like he was talking about using high amounts of salted water, 2 and 3 teaspoons to a liter of water, and then, guzzling that down within 15, 30 minutes. And this flushes out the colon with a strong laxative effect. And, excuse me, I too think this is dangerous, but taking the quarter teaspoon gives us access to the 72 minerals that have been lost from our drinking water by filtration, etc. And this woman continued, interesting, it was an interesting discussion. Thank you for the thoughts. I did read a comment from one person who may or may not be a scientist. He said that inorganic minerals, as in sea salt, are not absorbed by our cells. Is this true? I answer, and I start with a capital groan. Where do people come up with these crazy ideas? Animals travel hundreds of miles to find a salt lick because they need those minerals. When minerals are dissolved in the bloodstream, they go in and out of ionic states, and then the mineral ions are absorbed into cells. That's one of the reasons why liquid Remag and Remite are so effective, plus they are stabilized ions. And she said, I thought it sounded odd. He said that the only way we get minerals is through plants, and then he advocated for drinking only distilled water. Now that, to me, is a big no-no. First of all, plants don't have the minerals anymore. I mean, it's just hopeless to think that you can get them that way, and unless you're, organic biodynamic farmer that puts rock dust on your plants and you analyze your plants and make sure they're high in minerals. Distilled water is just steam that condenses on the side of a beaker. I mean, I used to do a lot of distillation of herbs and oils and whatnot when I was in the New York lab. So I know it's just steam. It's just H2O. It's got nothing in it. It's empty. When I've done that, when I've distilled from tap water, or even just one day I took a 10-liter flask, huge flask, and filled it with New York tap water and boiled it dry. And at the bottom was, probably a lot of dirt, but also minerals. And what we've come to with our water intake is that the water's so polluted we have to filter the heck out of it, or we have to distill it, or we have to reverse osmosis it to make it empty of heavy metals and chemicals and bacteria and viruses, but we take out the minerals as well. And that's what is, partly is what's making people unhealthy, is they're not getting their minerals, and distilled water is just dead. You need the minerals for your electrolytes, for the electrolytic activity in the body. And that's why I tell people to replace those minerals with the minerals that are in the earth, which end up in the sea as the 72 minerals in seawater. And this business of inorganic minerals versus organic minerals, I mean, a mineral is a element. It's like, if you look at magnesium chloride, which is our Remag, it's not organic or inorganic. It may be in a plant, so the plant's organic, but the mineral is a mineral, period. So this business of bioavailability of organic versus inorganic, it's you can parse that down and see the fault in it. And she's quoting this doctor, a so-called doctor, and he's saying God, or more precisely Mother Nature, does not put any minerals in water. Now that's really bizarre, because what we depended on for the floodplains in the spring to grow the crops was the heavily mineralized water coming from the mountains down the streams. I mean, they talk about the people living long lives in the Himalayan mountains, and they're drinking water from streams where the liquid is creamy with minerals. Mother Nature only creates pure distilled waters. So people are reading this, and they just, I mean, there may be good information also on the site. This doctor apparently does hair analysis, so I really don't know how expert he is in minerals when he says these things. On and on and on. So it was an interesting back and forth with this person, and I just wanted to pass on some of that information because you are coming across all kinds of information on the internet, and a lot of it is, it may be a person's own bias, but then when they try to pass it off as gospel, or when we take these things as gospel without thinking it through and using our own common sense, and that's why people do call us or email us or go through customer service to try to find out what our opinion is. So there we go, Jenny.
Very good, Carolyn.
More to say, but hopefully we can turn it over to you and your people now.
Yes, we've got some callers holding on the line and also some comments that have come through the chat. So let's do it really quick. I love this comment from Fergie. Hello, Carolyn and Ginny. Greetings from Nova Scotia. Total Body Reset has been a wonderful, exciting addition to my life in the physical sense. I am a master competitive rower, and now after 3 full months of intense training and racing, there aren't days of exhaustion, sore muscles, and not being recovered in time for the next practice, which takes 4 days a week. With early morning on-water sessions, I am fresh as a daisy and feel really pumped. All the products contribute in many ways every day. Thank you so much for bringing the Total Body Reset protocol into my life. This show gives me so much to look forward to as well. Isn't that sweet? Wait a minute. Hold on.
Oh, that's awesome. That's perfect. And that's what we're doing. We're helping healthy people stay healthy because you sweat out your minerals, so you need to put them back. And let's put them back and not wait 20 or 30 years. That's awesome. Thanks, Becky.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Okay. And also Susan in New Zealand, she said, I've had a resurgence of a few health problems, so I'm soaking up some good health motivation here. Very good. So, Susan, if you have, I don't know if we can do this. Can we answer her questions? If she's got, well, if you have a concern, type it, and if we can answer it, we will. How about that? Let's do it that way. And also, let's talk to our callers this evening. Again, 602-666-6027 is the number to call if you want to talk to Dr. Dean, and we'll be going out to Michigan first, to the great state of Michigan, area code 734. You're on the line with Dr. Carolyn Dean. If you could give us your name and then state your question or comment.
Oh, goodness. Hi, Dr. Carolyn Dean. I appreciate you taking my call.
Thank you. What's
I'm
your
actually
first
not in
name?
Jeannie.
Jeannie? Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Can
go
you hear me?
ahead, Jeannie. Yes.
All right. I'll try to be brief. I have actually gotten your book, and I've even in my cupboard I've gotten your Remag and your Remite even. Mm-hmm. I'm a 50-year-old, very healthy, previously always very healthy, no medication ever before. About 2 years ago, I had suffered the death of both parents, pretty close together. And then it seemed like things started to unravel from then. Health-wise, I seemed to go through that pretty well. But a few months after when my mother passed away, that I noticed these strange muscle twitches that seemed to be happening throughout my body. Nobody could pinpoint them. I went to my doctor at that time. They probably lasted for maybe 6 weeks or so. They made me quite anxious. They weren't painful. They were minor, but I could tell they were there. The doctor wanted to put me on antidepressants. I refused. I didn't want that. I knew something else was going on. That's when I got your book and researched, the magnesium, and I felt like maybe that was one of the symptoms. It did go away, and then sure enough...
Did you take minerals? Did you take anything?
I did. I did take some supplements at that time. I don't think I was taking your products then, but I was taking some supplements and feeling better. I think, I started to feel like things are getting back to normal. And sure enough, another 6 weeks went by or so, and then another weird symptom would happen. Minor, and nothing seemed to be related. And then the doctors would say, oh, must be in your head again. And still wanted to prescribe antibiotics. Honestly, one of the symptoms was this strange, very minor but strange sensation on the tip of my tongue. I could feel it, and I didn't know what it was, and it wouldn't go away. It finally went away by itself. And now, in the interim, I'm trying to seek out new doctors, naturopaths, and doing all the research I could do. And I kept coming back to you and to your books. Finally, like I said, things would come and go, and I'm a 50-year-old. I've got a 26-year-old daughter with a baby, but I've also got 9 and 10-year-old boys of my own. So I've got young boys still to care for. So, and of course, I do 10,000 things at once. That's the kind of personality I am. But I started to get, in addition with this, with all the doctor Googling I was doing and research on my own, because I didn't trust anybody else anymore, I started to get, I think, more anxious, like a medical student. The more you read, the more you think you've got.
Right.
So to wrap it up, back in December, things kind of hit, a brick wall. I guess. I started to get this strange feeling in my throat, and it wasn't bad. It was very minor. It felt like a little bit of a lump in my throat. It started with an urge to cough. I felt like an urge to cough, but I didn't need to cough, but I just felt something isn't right. So the doctor says allergies. Another one wants to prescribe more antidepressants, which I wouldn't take. And I knew it was there, but it's so minor, they would say, just leave it alone. So in frustration, I started to get so anxious about this symptom, I was convinced I had cancer. And, I didn't literally go to an ENT. I just went to another naturopath and said, he prescribed me officially with globus hystericus, which means I guess it's all in my head.
Well, and I think it's a magnesium deficiency myself, but they call it globus.
Well, if then I was not sure whether I should up my supplements or take them back, do more. I thought maybe the magnesium was causing a problem. I ended up.
How much magnesium were you taking? Are you ready to ask the question? You said this would be short, and I've got your whole life story, and I know exactly what's going on, and so do you. And you've got my book, and you've read it, and you know it's magnesium deficiency. So what's
I'll quickly fast forward. Right after that, I found a Chinese acupuncturist that seemed to fix my problems. He was also he was just through acupuncture. I'd never had acupuncture. After a week of going to see him, I felt fine. He was also a trained gastroenterologist, though, in China. He said my problem was a reflux and not to worry, and he'd take care of it. Okay, fast forward to now. Last week, I started to feel these throat symptoms again, and I'm wondering, I was reading today, could this be some sort of like an LR, what do they call it, the silent reflux that goes up through the esophagus, through the throat, and causing the pepsin attaching and causing all kinds of problems there?
It's possible, but even, and I'm sorry I can't, because the FDA won't really allow us to talk about magnesium fixing diseases,
I understand.
But any sort of spasm anywhere in your body, including the stomach, can be a magnesium deficiency. And what I try to do, Jeannie, is say to people, well, all these strange things, is there a common denominator? Is there something that puts it all together? And if you've read my book, I say it over and over again that the basic magnesium deficiency that 80% of us suffer will lead to all kinds of magnesium deficiency symptoms that will be misdiagnosed, called everything else in the book. They'll come and go, they come and go perhaps because a person may eat some foods that have enough magnesium in it to hold them over, or, the body just pulls it out of the bones and muscles. But unless you've saturated yourself with the ReMag for 3 months, you won't have done a proper experiment on yourself, and you're the only one who can do the experiment. We can just advise you that tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people now, even just with our products, have done that experiment and proved it to themselves. And, when you doubt yourself, and like you say, using Dr. Google and getting yourself upset, it just drains more magnesium. It's a very unfortunate vicious cycle. And,
it sure is.
Listening to the show, listening to the archives, just really get yourself reinforced with this. Really does sound like a magnesium deficiency situation. Muscle twitches, tingling on the tongue. That's what the sensation on the tip of the tongue is. Tingling, twitching, all muscle and nerve irritations anywhere in the body. And this is where doctors invariably will say, you need an antidepressant. And look what you went through. I mean, a couple of years ago, that type of, shock to your both parents dying. I mean, even when you were talking about it right now, you teared up. You're not over it. Your body really needs support. And the magnesium will help. We have FAQ where I have some affirmations, listening to an Italian opera to break the link with past grief, rescue remedy, or walnut to break the link with past grief. There are things you can do. And if you email Ginny, she'll send you that FAQ about breaking the link and working through the grief. We refer people to someone who, medical doctor who does total biology for, the conflicts that we build up because of, grief or situations that you just don't think you can solve yourself. When a person has a stress that they consider unsolvable, how do you solve 2 deaths? How do you deal with that? If there's an unsolvable situation, the body will create symptoms to try to help you. It's not trying to, attack you or be mean, and it's not a drug deficiency. It's the way the body tries to cope. And we've had thousands of people tell us, well, even in the middle of something that was unsolvable and horrible stress, by being saturated with the ReMag, they were able to cope and get through it. So that's what I'm talking about.
Wonderful. I think I needed a little bit of this reinforcement, maybe. And
of course. You're there by yourself, just trying to figure it out. And every time you go to a doctor, they just tell you the opposite of what your own natural instincts are telling you. So how on earth are you supposed to, create the right answer that's best for you? So there you go.
I certainly do appreciate that. I'm going to take it to heart and email. Is it Jenny, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Jenny.
I will.
That's support@rnareset.com. Okay, Jeannie?
Okay, very good. I do certainly appreciate your time and your help. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Great. It's a great topic question. Great thing. You're helped many people by allowing me to answer that for you.
Good. I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks again.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Very good. Live with Dr. Carolyn Dean here on AchieveRadio.com. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in this evening, and thanks to all our callers. And, yes, every single person who calls in makes a difference for other people. It's amazing how people will listen to these recordings 2 years later and hear the answer that they needed about a condition or question that they had. So it's all very valuable. Thank you for your contribution. Let's go out to area code 314, Missouri. Area code 314, you're on the line with Dr. Dean. If you could give us your name and then state your question or comment.
Hello.
Hello,
Hi.
go ahead, please.
Yes, my name is Han Paradise. I'm from St. Louis. Hi, Dr. Carolyn. It's so nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
I know before I call in, I did chat with Pam, and then I can ask you some of this question. And I'm going to tell you my story. I have a brother-in-law who diagnosed with cancer 6 years ago with colon, and he did have a surgery in colon and liver, and they removed the gallbladder. And after that, and he did the chemo, and it was fine for him for 4.5 years, the remission, and but then it comes back, the tumor come back in the liver, and he did have surgery to remove some of the tumor in the liver, and then they didn't do anything then, and then it came back again. Some tumor came back again in the liver, and he did the cyberknife, and then chemo after that, and it's supposed to have 14, but he only could handle 7. After that, they had to suspend it. Now he's very sick, and I need some advice, counseling a little bit.
Well, the problem is we're not able to give advice on disease. The FDA won't let us talk about what dietary supplements can do other than just for health. So all I can tell you is that if your brother-in-law takes proper nutrients to support his cells, it can be very helpful. If he is willing to talk to a doctor about the conflict that can create the cancer, it's not psychiatry, it's just the conflict of disease. Like with the liver, the problem is with the liver. I'll look at my notes here. It's very specific about the liver. The liver is a sense of lack, where a person doesn't feel they have enough. I think it's because the liver stores sugar, it stores glycogen, and so when you feel you don't have enough storage of your food or your money, then your cells in your liver can build up as a way of trying to produce more storage. It sounds sort of strange, but it's a way of looking at disease and looking at cancer as the body trying to survive by creating symptoms in the body to solve, some worry that a person has. Now, I don't know if any of this makes sense, and, we're talking about your brother-in-law, or if he'd be interested at all, but, if you could say to him, well, Dr. Dean said the liver means a worry about lacking money, and, maybe if that is a problem, that's something you could discuss with someone who can describe this to you better. This is Dr. David Holt I'm talking about. So, that's about as far as I can go, just to say our nutrients are very important for building new healthy cells, and that if, for the other aspect, the conflict aspect of cancer, I'd recommend Dr. Holt.
How's you spell it, Dr. Carolyn?
HOLT. And I have his email here. We talk about him a lot. He's a friend of mine. He's a very good person. His his website I have. It's turnpointhealth.com. TURNPOINT health, HEALTH.com.
Yeah,
okay?
Thank you. I did put him on your protein structure remake, remind. And on a drop, but we out, so we can't order anymore because it's not in stock.
Yes. Well, the ReStructure has the RNA drop powder in it. So,
okay.
Yes, it has, and that's what makes it so special. So he's getting that in that way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You think that we can put the RNA serum on his surface, on his liver, that because we can feel his tumor?
Yes, we are saying that to people until the RNA drops come back, that they can take the Renew serum and just put it on the skin and put it anywhere they like, and it'll absorb it'll absorb RNA into the cells. So yes, you can put it anywhere you like.
Okay.
I know. It's hard to say too much more, but like I said to Jeannie just a few minutes ago, we can send you the affirmations and the different things for major stress and grief that might be helpful as well. So you can email Ginny for that, for the stress affirmations, okay?
Okay, Dr. Carolyn.
Right, and those are from Total Biology, the words in the stress affirmation. What happens with chronic illness is, the body is depleted and the stress builds and then the conflicts come. So we just say build the body up with the nutrients, try to resolve conflict, and if people could express the stress and fears, with just in a safe dialogue, they take it out of their mind, so it's not so much weighing on their mental capacity. Because when a person has too much worry, too much friction in their head, too much unresolved conflicts, then in order to save our lives, so that we can get back and sleep properly and eat properly and, not stumble around in our life, in order to take the stress off the brain, the body will create body symptoms. I went through this just this past month. I totally went through conflict. When the FDA said I couldn't talk to people anymore, I had a sore throat. Boom, I couldn't talk. And then I went to San Diego and met with some people, and I danced for 2 hours. I just didn't stop, and my body was in great shape. And a week and a half later, all of a sudden my knees hurt and my feet hurt, and I couldn't walk, and it was because I couldn't move forward because of the FDA wouldn't let me move forward. What am I going to talk about? Knee pain is forced obedience, when you have to kneel before an authority. So my knees hurt. And that lasted, I knew it right away what it was, thank goodness. And I just said, we're taking steps, of course, to deal with this properly with the FDA and be compliant, etc. But it wasn't too long before I'm fine, and I'm walking 4 miles a day. So it's always a combination of keeping your body healthy as you can with your diet and your exercise and your thoughts. And
yes.
if it's out of balance, then you know what to do. Okay, a little more exercise, take care of my sleep a little more, take more of the Remag and Remite and Realign, and give your body those building blocks.
Yes, I agree with that. But what you said about my brother-in-law, about the liver, all of those things, I think it's really tell me a lot about my brother-in-law. So I will have him to listen to you. Mm-hmm. And he's the one who asked me to help him with the different paths because he cannot follow because he knows me. I always follow the other one, the holistic way. Right. Even though I followed the holistic way about 2 years ago. 5 years ago I started, and I take all kind of I start taking all the supplements. Mm-hmm. But I think I really agree with you 100% about calcium, because I I used to work in a hospital and I kept holding.
Let me just interrupt for a minute. We have to go to a station break.
I need a lot of calcium in me.
We're going to take you after the hour. Hang on. We'll come back.
AchieveRadio.com. Psychic radio, holistic radio, spiritual radio. This is AchieveRadio.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AchieveRadio.
What a beautiful day to be alive. My debt is paid and more money arrives. The fridge is full and there's plenty of ice for a fireside chat with anyone I like. What a beautiful day, good to be here, when almost everyone has disappeared, when almost everyone is waiting in line. It's good to meet you in this world of mine.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2 of Live with Dr. Carolyn Dean here on AchieveRadio.com. So glad that you've joined us, and again, back with us tonight. Let's go back to our phones and bring Dr. Dean back and our former caller from the first hour, and we'll wrap up this conversation and then go on. Carolyn, go ahead, please.
Yes, sorry we had to cut you off. You were saying about calcium and your experience.
Yes, and because I had a stroke, and that made me think about I need to be on magnesium too. So I started to get some magnesium, and then I think the magnesium is not good enough, so I tried to Google, and I found your Remag, and I was so excited. It really helped me with my pain in my knees after my stroke, and my arms, the weakness in my arm.
Mm-hmm.
And I get some of my motor skill back.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really excited about your Remag and Remite.
Very good. Okay,
and me and my husband start the whole new set of yours.
Oh, that's great. That's very good. Now, what I'm doing for you is I'm going through my notes. I have, in this one, 500 pages of notes from my classes on total biology, and
yes.
I'll take some of the words about liver for you, so that you can share them with your brother-in-law. Okay?
Okay, doctor.
Mm-hmm. So that means you have to email Ginny and ask her about the stress meditation and the liver notes, okay?
Liver note and stress meditation.
Right, and that's the support at rnareset.com.
Yes, doctor. Thank you so much.
Okay. And I'm sorry, but I missed the pronunciation of your name. Can you give me that again, your first name?
Han. My name is Han Paradise. H-A-N-H. Yes.
H-A-N-H. Okay, Han. Okay, well, yeah, it's a sad situation, but we never give up hope. Because the layers of reasons are more understandable than when doctors just say cancer comes out of the blue. It gives us much more control because there are things we can do. Okay?
Yes. Thank you, doctor.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you do for
thank you.
all of us.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah,
thank you for calling in again. The questions like yours are important, even though I can't answer them. I think I did a good enough job skirting around the
Yes,
issue.
you did. Yes, you did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Han. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
And best to your brother-in-law, too, and your husband.
Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you, doctor. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, very good. 602-666-6027 is the number that you want to call if you want to talk to Dr. Dean tonight. You have to hit *5 on your keypad to raise your hand in the studio and let me know you have a question or comment. Otherwise, your phone remains on mute and we're not able to hear you. So again, *5 on your keypad will raise your hand and let us know you have a question or comment, and then we'll put you on the phone with Dr. Dean. Carolyn, what's going on the chat line is that Nicholas is saying that Dr. Carolyn is the most compassionate doctor in the whole wide world, and I agree.
Oh.
The whole wide world.
And Nicholas is from South Africa, so he's encompassing the whole world, I guess.
That's right. Yes, she is very compassionate and loving. Let's see. Now let's go back to somebody's question from earlier. Mary typed in, I am 72 years young, and I have a swelling in my feet, ankles, and legs. I just tested my magnesium level at 4.4. I am taking bioidentical estrogen and progesterone. Don't know if swelling is due to venous insufficiency, hormones, cellulitis, etc. I just ordered Remag and Remite. Do you have any suggestions on how I can get rid of this edema?
Okay. Well, we can, edema, swelling legs, whatever, ankles, it's not so much a disease, so I can talk about that, and that's the first place to start anyway. And if you have swollen ankles, that will, create pressure on the venous system. It'll be more difficult to walk, all those things. The way I start with it is, personally, I would be increasing my water intake and putting the sea salt in the water. And you follow our guidelines, which are written all over the place, but they are take your body weight in pounds and divide that in half. So if you're 150 pounds, that's 75. And you take that many ounces, drink that many ounces of water a day. And it should be a filtered water of some sort, but then you add a quarter teaspoon of sea salt to each liter. And if that strikes you as too much to begin with, then you start slower, a few pinches of sea salt. And after a time, people will say they just can't stand the taste of plain water anymore. They need the kind of the sweetness of the sea salt. What that is going to do is the minerals start going into your cells because you need the minerals. Sea salt apparently has about 72 minerals. You need those minerals in your cells. That's cofactors and all kinds of metabolic processes. Sea salt does have a fair amount of magnesium, but it's not really going to meet your RDA. But the minerals are in the cells, and as osmosis takes effect, the high osmotic concentration of minerals in the cells pulls water in after them. So you end up, pulling your drinking water in. You end up pulling water into your cells instead of it floating around your ankles. And many, 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 many people have told us, my gosh, you're telling me to drink more water and sea salt. I thought I'd swell up like a balloon, and here I can get my shoes on for the first time in 10 years. And then when you add your Remag and your Remite, slowly introducing those minerals, because you don't want to rev yourself up too fast, because these minerals are so well absorbed. They're going to start working even at a quarter teaspoon doses. And this whole water business, someone did ask me that in an interview the other day about why all these minerals, why all this water. Well, what we found in the first year or so of using the Remag, or it might not have taken me a whole year, but people began to say, I feel kind of dehydrated with the Remag. My lips are dry. Actually, it was only about twice I had to hear that. And I knew right away that people just weren't drinking enough water in order to fill up their cells with the water that the magnesium needed in its metabolic processes. So that's what I would do. I'd be doing the sea salted water, slowly build up your Remag and Remite, and all those minerals will reverse the direction of the fluid in your body back into your cells instead of in what they call the interstitial spaces. So that's the answer. And
That is an excellent and comprehensive answer. That will have to become a customer service favorite there, Carolyn. That was very, very good. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Wonderful, wonderful. And somebody typed in, Rosie, Mary, the other thing is motion, moving a little bit could stimulate circulation. You're very wise in getting Remag and Remite. You will be a new woman in a few days. Start out slow. This person's giving all the great information that you gave. I have 10 years on you, endured the swelling the same, but as soon as I started on the Completement formulas, it vanished within a week and has stayed away. I'm proud of my trim ankles, and through mild exercise and even a bit of upper thigh definition. Ooh, sexy, sexy. Upper thigh definition. You go for it, girl. That's awesome. Very good, very good.
Yes,
okay.
It's very important. Absolutely. The lymphatics in the legs, they help push the water back toward the chest and heart, the whole lymphatic and venous system there. So movement is important, and what happens is people get the ankle edema, they can't walk as easily, or it's painful, so they stop walking and they stop the movement, which then makes their ankle swell even more. So,
Right.
Thank you for that input.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. Susan in New Zealand said, this is what she wrote in. She says, Jenny, I was late in doing an order. She's in New Zealand. So it takes quite a while to get there, actually. Mm-hmm. And then it took longer to arrive than usual, so I had to ration out my Remag, and I just went downhill. I got sinusitis, a UTI, and I was feeling generally awful. I think yeast overgrowth is also at play here. Then last week I had a frightening reaction 5 minutes after eating clams for lunch at a restaurant. I have never eaten clams before. I couldn't breathe. My airways weren't working. I was coughing, gasping, and wheezing. I was so frightened. The restaurant manager came out with an EpiPen and was going to call an ambulance, but my body managed to resolve this, and I declined the EpiPen. It seems to have a reaction to the clams. Do you think this could have been some sort of allergic type of reaction to a food spurred on by yeast overgrowth? I've never reacted to any food like this before.
Well, it's like was it sinusitis and cystitis? Did Susan say? What were the
She said when sinusitis, a UTI.
Urinary tract infection, or an UTI?
Yes.
Urinary tract infection, I guess. So that means she was on antibiotics, which is definitely going to boost your yeast. Clams don't interact with yeast, but what happens when you have yeast, you do get more histamine stimulated in the body. And when magnesium is one of its functions is it acts like a natural antihistamine. So it was just, that perfect little storm of having too much histamine aggravated by your yeast toxins. There are 178 different yeast toxins, and you should look at my yeast book. And this experience just focuses you on dealing with your yeast. That's sort of the mini silver lining in this, horrible situation.
Excellent. Very good. Okay, let's look at our phone calls here. We've got area code 315, the great state of New York. You're on the line with Dr. Dean. If you could give us your name and then state your question or comment.
Hi, this is Karen. I want to thank you for taking my call.
Okay.
This might seem like it's a reiteration of the first caller, because when I was listening to her, I kind of chuckled. Well, we got the same kind of things going on. I've been on, I'm 54. I've been on Completement formula since October of last year, so I've been on for a while. I went through the elimination diet, just suspecting some yeast and that kind of thing, and that all was very successful. I was having weird symptoms, too many to describe at this point. It always seemed like when one left, another one took over. But then I started to feel really good about a month ago. But I'm left with two issues, and I just would like your thoughts on is there anything else that I should be doing? So about a month ago, I noticed that when I turned my head to the right, I had this pulling sensation on my left side by my neck. I also have had things that kind of were part of my old symptoms, like hard to clear my throat, a little hoarse voice, raising sore throats. The sore throats have all gone away. The only thing I'm left with is a little sensitivity on the tongue, which is very similar to your first caller, around the edges, almost sometimes like a metallic taste. And then the second thing is I went to get a sonogram, and they did discover I have two thyroid, they call thyroid nodules on my left side. And so, taking all the formulas, I was taking 3 teaspoons of Remag and 2 teaspoons of Remite. And then now, when I started to feel good, I brought it down to 2 teaspoons of Remag and 1.5 teaspoons of Remite. And I did that even after I was experiencing some of these recent symptoms. So I guess my question is, with the thyroid nodules, my doctor says that he doesn't believe it's related at all to kind of anything else that's going on in my body. So I wanted your thoughts about, is there something else I should do? He's just going to have me wait 6 months and do another sonogram and just sort of keep an eye on them. What would be your thoughts on that?
Right. Yeah, we're getting into a bit tricky territory because you're asking me to give you medical information. However, what I need to know is that pulling you feel in your left side of your neck when you turn to the right, do you think that's coming from your the front of your neck where your thyroid is and where the nodules are? Are they related?
That is what made me go to the doctor, and he felt my glands there. Didn't think he felt anything, but just to be safe, that's when he sent me to get the sonogram. Now, I will tell you, I don't have that feeling anymore, but I do believe they're still there. Because when I push on it, I almost feel sometimes like they get stuck, and like I kind of push them around. Like I can feel this little like clunk clunk, you know. But I don't have that same sensation. Like I don't feel the feeling I had that originally said to myself, "What's that? You know, like what's going on my left side? Do I have a little, something there?" Now that's gone, but apparently. I still have the nodules, but what I do have sometimes is once in a while I get a hoarse voice, like I miss a vowel or two, right now I don't seem to be experiencing that, but, and then occasionally I have sometimes I feel like there's extra phlegm in my throat when I'm, say, drinking a smoothie. It's very food specific. It's not all foods. It's just some foods that happens with.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I know the thyroid, what we know about the health of the thyroid is it requires the 9 of the 12 minerals that are in the remite, and that should help it. But, what did they do thyroid antibodies to see if it's a thyroiditis?
No, they just did the sonogram and said, let's check it in 6 months. I don't want to compare myself, but my sister-in-law actually had a nodule, and her doctor sent her to get a biopsy only because they said it looked funny. Okay, It came back fine, but they didn't even go there. They just said let's just keep an eye on these. We'll do another sonogram in 6 months and just see how they're doing. I heard.
Have you been eating more goitrogenic foods lately, like cabbages or broccoli or?
Well, my diet always has consisted of a ton of vegetables normally, and when I went on the elimination diet, obviously I stayed away from the starches in the beginning and focused. When you take out the starches, what you're left with are nightshades and cruciferous,
so. Good point.
But I have added back, a lot more foods, and I don't feel like I have. I feel like the whole yeast thing is fine. It's, I don't. Yeah. I mean, the elimination diet worked for me, and I'm not going back to to eating certain foods, but I've added a lot more to my diet, and it's, I'm fine with that. But it's, I do eat a lot of cruciferous. I've always done that. But.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky because there are a lot of different, even gluten foods they say can react. Personally, I would get a thyroid antibody test to see if somehow you've got a thyroid irritation, and look at my thyroid book and see if anything comes to light through that.
Thyroid antibody, are you talking about just testing the TSH, or is that a different test?
Oh, no, they're actual antibodies that are developed against thyroid tissue. It's the diagnosis of Hashimoto's thyroiditis.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And, until you know that, I guess, maybe a thyroid nodule specialist doesn't look at Hashimoto's. They'll look at the nodules and define those, and then if they don't find anything down the road, they might do the antibodies. But I think the antibodies could be helpful to know if there's some irritation going on.
Okay. And then with the tongue, the sensitivity of the tongue, sometimes it's worse than others, and sometimes it's not bad at all. but I do feel, I don't know if you feel that possibly could be related to what's going on around that same area in the thyroid, or if it's just totally different.
Well, to me, anatomically, not even talking about disease,
right.
It could be a referred sensation.
Mm-hmm.
Because the nerves travel down the throat from the back of
right.
the tongue, from the tongue. So it could be related. Personally, I would go back up on the Remag and Remite and see if that balances things out.
Okay. Now, on the 1.5 teaspoons of Remite, that takes me to like a full 100% of, I believe I looked at, was iodine, full 100%. Is there any problems with taking more iodine?
Oh, right. Yes, good point. Yeah, stay with the 1.5. Just increase your Remag. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the antibody test, I did have the test done, and I think that's more of I don't know if it's more of a broad test, but I did have the test done for the autoimmune antibodies, and that came back negative. I don't know if that tells you anything, or if this thyroid one is a different test.
It might be different, but maybe they just do an autoimmune, and if that's negative, then they leave it. If it were positive, they might do thyroid antibodies. So maybe they feel they've eliminated it. And, at a point where, I'm kind of looking at how you're doing everything and you've done everything. So maybe the next step is to look at what the thyroid does. And the thyroid controls time. And if you want more time, it'll slow your thyroid down. I can say that better. If you want the world to speed up for you, you can create hyperthyroidism. If you want the world to slow down, you create hypothyroidism. But nodules, it's like they're in between. The body can't figure out, well, what do I want this to go faster or slower? And so you're stuck in the middle of having benign thyroid nodules, which really don't have extra activity. They're just hanging out there waiting for you to program them in some way.
Okay.
So
Well, I know I was just going to say, someone, the nurse at my gynecologist's office, I was talking to her, and she actually has them too. She said they've been looking at hers for 6 years. They just keep monitoring them, and she said that what she was told is that it's if your thyroid is overworking, like sometimes this could happen if you have an overworked thyroid. And I'm on the elimination diet. I mean, I didn't need to lose weight, but I did lose some weight. And I've kind of kept it off. I've never really been overweight at all, and I've never, not excessively overweight. Maybe, I could have lost a couple pounds, but so now I'm definitely on the thinner side, but I'm on a good thinner side. I don't feel like I'm like too thin, So I don't know if that tells you anything either, if that necessarily syncs with, a thyroid issue or not, but.
No, well, it was elimination diet that caused the weight loss. If the thyroid was overworking, it would show up in the thyroid blood tests. What I would do, because as I was saying, you're doing everything correctly. The next step would be to look at the total biology and even have a conversation with Dr. Holt to see if there's some conflict that you're overlooking that could be directed at your thyroid.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so you could think about that.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Good set of questions. Thanks a lot, Karen.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Dean.
Bye-bye.
All right, very good. Live with Dr. Carolyn Dean. Great callers this evening. 602-666-6027 is the number to call if you have a question or comment for Dr. Dean. And we're just so grateful for all of our regular listeners, too. I had a delightful conversation today, Carolyn, with one of our regular listeners, Roger, who's been around forever, been on the Completement formulas for many years, and he said every week he says he's going to call in, or he thinks about what he could call in and say, but he feels so great and so healthy. He's like, I don't have anything to talk about. But and I think that's the way a lot of our listeners are. They're just like happy and ready for more, like you said, more health, and still feeling fantastic and just doing well. So sometimes I guess we shouldn't be too shocked when we don't have callers, because everybody's probably pretty content. But if you did want to talk to Dr. Dean tonight, 602-666-6027 is the number to call. And, of course, you've got to hit *5 on your keypad to raise your hand in the studio and let me know you have a question or comment, and then I'll put you on with Dr. Dean. But for now, Carolyn, the phone lines are clear. How are we doing with our mailbag?
Oh, I have stuff to say. Not so much mailbag, but let me just finish this email to organize my swim at the end of the show here. Okay, I'm back. Someone wrote in about the Completement Now, my 2-year online wellness program. So I thought this was interesting because you all know my commitment is to research common sense, practical, efficient, affordable ways of staying well and making these tools available so you can take charge of your own body and your own health. So that's where I spent the 2 years creating the Completement Now online wellness program. I just thought that people needed to have a step-by-step guide to wellness. And everybody who does it loves it, but a lot of people, around the time I was writing it, we had the stock market crash, and people just get so stressed out that they were looking for a pill to solve their problems. And that's where at that same time, I went into creating availability of the RNA drops and Remag and Realign, etc. So this is what Completement Now member wrote. I think that a lot of your module subscribers are probably baby boomers like myself. I have thought since going through the program that if I had started doing even half of what you suggest early in life, even in my 30s, that I would not be fighting the things I am in my body today. I'm sure that has something to do with why you are doing as well as you are now, because you've known a lot of this for a long time. Having followed the standard American diet and all of the typical bad Western culture habits for so long, it's no wonder so many of us are walking around in such a poor state of health. All of that includes following a misguided medical system. You have tried to get across that preventive measures are 1,000 times better than trying to fix what is broken. What you have taught is mostly preventive, while some of it is corrective. But we have become an impatient people, and we want microwave results. Even more than that, we are adopting new habits after years of doing things so differently. When we start doing things contrary to what we grew up with, we often feel like fish out of water. And when stress comes in, it's human nature to try to revert back to comfort zones. It takes energy and clear thinking to change habits, and we need to understand why we are doing it, or we surely won't stick to something that takes effort. Many of us aren't in the state of health that affords energy, so we will start out trying to make changes and then become easily discouraged when we don't see some results fairly soon. The medical world teaches us to take a symptom and fix it with a pill. That isn't how the body works. I think those are some of the reasons that people are insisting on so many supplements. We get it that natural is better than synthetic, but we want to take that same medical world theory that is so ingrained in us to fix it with a pill quickly, and just turn it around and say, okay, I'll take the natural stuff instead, and then it'll be fine. So yeah, she's trying to say that we're putting supplements in the place of drugs, but it's still just taking a pill instead of doing changes.
But ironically, Carolyn, your stuff's so effective that it is like taking a pill.
I know, and that's exactly what I was going to say at the end. You know, I kind of leapfrogged over that whole dilemma of being able to say to people, but now you can get your energy from the ReMag, which will help you make your health changes. So, yeah, that's right, Bob. And just to finish up what she says, there's certainly truth to the fact that we aren't going to easily get the nutrients we need from today's food supply, so this knowledge adds to the supplement craze. None of us wants to admit the extent of harm that we have allowed done to us from our indulgence in modern convenience and technology. We can all cite the advantages of the conveniences over what our grandmothers had, but we probably never dreamed anything close to what the price would be to our health, minds, relationships. And she just finishes up, I know you know this already, and she said she had to learn it, and she just encourages me to keep on going. So I thought that was a very nice tribute to Completement Now, and if people want to join that, they can go to drcarolyndean.com, sign up.
Hey, Carol, one of your greatest tributes, it should be repeated every show, that when you and Ginny went to the New Jersey huge factory airport hangar-size places where they make all the vitamins for all the companies around the world. Mm-hmm. Frank, your guy there, had never heard of this magnesium thing, even though he lives at the heart of the industry of alternative solutions. And within a couple of weeks, he's declaring, holy damn, look what's happened to me. I feel really good, from your ReMag.
Yeah.
See, that's an important point, that the industry doesn't know.
Yeah, no. No, the industry is just selling a product. They're not. I think we're selling health. That's what we're selling.
We're selling something new. It's one of the first times something worked. Unless plants and whatever the shamans used back in the day, but those aren't reliable now because the marketing of herbs and everything, and maybe the pollution, that we actually had to come up with a new level of matter, which you call the cellular, to provide relief that hadn't happened for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Okay, Ginny, I can continue on to the next bit of information. You got anything for me?
Yes, that sounds lovely. Sounds wonderful.
Okay, so our dear friend and customer Joan up in Canada writes about some ad she saw for an anti-aging formula. I don't know if that's a claim. They're claiming that you can live to age 120. That's a pretty big health claim, I think. So she says, just how do the Completement formulas I'm taking fill the aging trap these people claim we all fall into? She says, I know that it must. The Completement formulas must help. I just don't know exactly how. But for those of us who are committed to the formulas and do feel excellent, I don't think it's much of a stretch to want to live a bit longer since we feel so darn good and know how to maintain that feeling. And, this I won't go into. I mean, this is just another one of these pills with 55 screen pages of advertising about this product that just rehashes a few non-organic herbs and nutrients in tiny amounts without any magnesium. So I wasn't too impressed, but at the same day I got Joan's email, I read a Medscape article called Elderly Hospital Patients Arrive Sick, Often Leave Disabled. So this was, it's a reference almost to my Death by Modern Medicine book. I have a section in there called Warehousing the Elderly, and it's like they finally realized it in the hospital world and are doing research on it. And this article talks about, starts off with patient Janet, active, outspoken, living by herself, working as a special education tutor in March had a bad fall and landed in the hospital. She's 75 years old. Doctors cared for her wounds and treated her pneumonia, so she ended up with pneumonia, which not everybody, but often seniors get it in hospital. She didn't sleep or eat well at the San Francisco hospital. She became confused and agitated, ultimately contracted a serious stomach infection. After more than 3 weeks in the hospital and 3 more in a rehab facility, she emerged far weaker than before, shaky and unable to think clearly. She had to stop working, wasn't able to drive for months, etc., etc. The article goes on. Many elderly patients deteriorate mentally or physically in the hospital, even if they recover from their original illness. Here's the statistic. About 1/3 of patients over 70 years and more than half of patients over 85 leave the hospital more disabled than when they arrive, research shows. So the older you are, the worse the hospital is for you. Hospital staff often fails to feed older patients properly and get them out of bed enough or control their pain adequately. Interrupted sleep, unappetizing food, and days in bed can cause lasting damage. Bed rest is really bad, says one doctor. And then it goes into more the cost factor. In addition, hospitals face few consequences if elderly patients become more impaired or less functional during their stays. The federal government penalizes hospitals when patients fall, get preventable infections, or return to hospital within 30 days of their discharge. But hospitals aren't held accountable if patients lose their memories or their ability to walk. They just aren't measured. And then they say financially, bed sores and adverse effects in a hospital cost Medicare about $4.4 billion annually. And physicians who reviewed the incidents determined that 44% could have been prevented. In addition to outright mistakes, poor or inadequate treatment in hospital leads to needless medical spending on extended hospital visits, readmissions, in-home caregivers, nursing care, et cetera, et cetera. Now, see, that's the only thing that's going to change this situation. It's costing hospitals too much when they don't take care of people. So that'll cause them to start taking care of people. And some of the final words, if you don't feed a patient, if you don't mobilize a patient, you've just made it far more likely they will go to a skilled nursing facility, and that's expensive. So that's...
Hey, Carolyn, do you have any comments from nurses? I know you mentioned one. Is there more than the one who was out shocked at her own profession?
Well, when I went to this article on Medscape, at the time there were about 100 comments, and I'm not there now, but there were all these comments about the inadequacy of care of patients, and they say it's a staffing problem. When they went for so much documentation in the hospitals, and that was many, many years ago, nurses spent more time at their desks writing up notes than they did with patients. And they turned a lot of the care over to nursing assistants or orderlies, and there just isn't the skilled care. It's just as simple as that. Any comment, Ginny?
I'm just thinking that I'm so grateful that I am ascended and not going to have to endure that mismanagement of my body and my very life force in a hospital. I mean, it's terrible and shocking. And I think hospitals, creep out a lot of people, or I can just speak for myself because they creep me out and they always have. Mm-hmm. But the way that people are shuttled around, and it is truly a factory. I mean, and really honestly, the this whole interaction that we've had in the last couple of weeks has been an eye-opener for me. But I will say that really you don't go to medical school. You go to drug and device school. That's what they should call it, drug and device school, so that people aren't confused that they're being taught how to prescribe drugs and use medical devices. And then they would realize, like, it's like going to automotive mechanical school. And then they would realize that they're going to be shuttled in and they're going to be part of their factory operation. And, you know, I have friends right now that are all around me, you know, that have been, you know, watching and observing, you know, what I've been doing these last couple of years. But they're starting to find themselves, either themselves or their spouse or their loved ones, with some kind of a condition. And now they're on the experiential end of what I've been, you know, warning them about and suggesting that they might want to try to prevent. And I think that, you know, there is no reward or incentive for preventative medicine anymore. But I think the Completement formulas are the best preventative program you can be on. I think everybody should be on it just for that principle. I'm sorry, Bob, what?
This point you make about changing the name, I've said for years on the radio, after World War II, they changed the names. People didn't know that the hospital was the new military. It's a military operation, advertising, as McLuhan says, and medicine, a military application on populations on the whole world of invading new technologies, and has nothing to do with health or what was called medicine. And so what is medicine? If hospitals were medicine and now are military, so what is actually medicine but doesn't have its name?
What?
Well, what we do.
Well, I was going to say, well, I mean, isn't medicine, I mean, that was the thing that was shocking to me. And, of course, you know, I'm just a big ignoramus when it comes to all this stuff because I did not grow up in this world like Carolyn. But medicine used to be based on plants, herbs. I mean, this is where they used to go to find the medicine anyway. And so medicine is what, like you said, Bob, what we are doing. We are using life to promote life.
Yeah.
And these doctors, devices, and drug people that are in there, and Susan in New Zealand is saying that both her elderly parents went into hospital and never came out. They died there. The care they received was appalling, and I had to be there to constantly protect them, and she's a nurse. She says, I'm a nurse, and the hospital is a terrible place to be. Patients are not respected and are treated very poorly, especially the elderly. My God, how could they be treated or respected? Everybody in there thinks they're superior in their knowledge of drugs and devices, and they just treat everybody like they're cattle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so. And well, anyway, I can't.
Hey, Jim, there's a famous thinker, Dr. Ivan Illich. He set up a place, I think, in Cuernavaca, someplace in Mexico in the 60s, a place for alternative knowledge, an alternative center. Well, he spoke in Halifax, Nova Scotia in 1975. We went to the lecture, and Carolyn was shocked at what he said. He said that anybody who comes up to him and says they're a med student, he says, well, welcome to the world of being a Nazi. And that was seemed very extreme back then, Carolyn, right?
Oh, yeah.
Even saying a Nazi is like an inadequate word nowadays. But it is appearing to be that extreme, the disservice of the new military called hospitals.
Well, here's what I wrote about it if we don't have any more.
Let's see, we don't have any callers right now, but if you want to talk to Dr. Dean, you've got to call 602-666-6027 and hit *5 on your keypad. Okay, go ahead, Carolyn.
Right. So this is a blog that may come up when I'm away in a couple of weeks. And I say hospitals make you worse. And it comes out of this article I just went over in detail. I say, if I were to describe a dystopian novel where people go into hospital sick in order to be cared for and come out disabled, you would be horrified. However, that's what's happening in today's hospital care for the elderly. I've written about it in Death by Modern Medicine in a section called Warehousing the Elderly. An August 10th, 2017 Medscape article, and you can Google this. Elderly hospital patients arrive sick, often leave disabled, tried to identify why this was happening but failed to come up with any solutions. And I do some quoting. And then I say in Chapter 15 of Magnesium Miracle, I talk about magnesium deficiency in the elderly, where deficiency causes autonomic nervous system disturbance that involves both the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems, causing hypotension on rising quickly or borderline hypertension. In elderly patients, excessive emotionality, tremor, weakness, sleep disorders, amnesia, and cognitive disturbances are particularly important aspects of magnesium deficiency. So all the symptoms that, the agitation that patients feel in this new, like sterile atmosphere of the hospital where they start to get disoriented and are medicated for it. And that starts this vicious cycle. They're already magnesium deficient. They're given sleeping pills and, wake-up pills. Well, not really, but they're giving pills to keep them in bed and keep them sedated. And all those create more magnesium deficiency. And,
It's just repulsive. It really is.
Hey, Carol, and tonight... President Trump's supposed to give a statement about what to do in Afghanistan, and the whole world will go nuts about the 2,000 people that will be killed, and meanwhile in the hospitals there's a fucking million people a year. There's the real wars. That's the military. In your hospitals, people, at the center of your employment, the center where you go to get jobs, and all that crazy, misaligned, improperly identified language mistakes. This is what your kids are being taught in school. So I'm a fanatic about this stuff because I've been around long enough to allow myself to be irritated and healthy. I can be irritated because I am so healthy that I can afford a little negativity in my attitude. I don't need positive affirmations. I'm so healthy. It's ridiculous.
So I just finished that blog along the lines of we're talking about right now. I've always said that I want people to stay healthy so they don't end up in a doctor's office or hospital. We get reports all the time that by taking the right dietary supplements, you can stay active and healthy and even recover from hospitalization faster. And, right now I'm just saying at the end of my blogs, just Google my name and dietary supplements to find out what I recommend for optimal cellular health. And our lawyers will tell us what words we can use to protect ourselves from people who think we're doing bad things by talking about good things.
Right, from the people who think we're doing bad things by telling people about the good things. Meanwhile, the people who accuse us of doing the bad things are governing the hospitals that are demanding the drugs be used, drugs that have been proven to be ineffective, cause side effects, and even kill people. And they're still on the market. I mean, sanctioned by the same people. I mean, it is a Nazi operation, Bob. I agree with you 100%. I see it clearly. It's nuts.
And if you want to name names, you just have to go back to the history of IG Farben, the Nazi chemical dye factory a lot of this drug knowledge came out of, and it was broken up after the war and spread around the world. So if you want to say it, these Nazi factors, or the elite of them, they won the war. And they hate people, or I don't know what, they hate something. They hate North America. And they're actually really rubbing it into the North Americans. Meanwhile, he's worried about some guy whose hair's awful, or Trump.
I mean, for a country that's supposed to have a superior health model, not because it's paid for by this, taxes, but it's supposed to be superior. I mean, that's what the FDA website says. that the FDA's job is to provide superior health care to the citizens of the United States.
Whoa.
I mean, we are 70% on pills, over-medicated, out of shape, and we spend billions of dollars on health programs, diet fads. I mean, we are so conflicted in this country. It's shocking how messed up it is.
Mm-hmm.
How can that? It's so contradictory.
Right. Well, it's definitely a business. I mean, when wars aren't being fought and armaments bought and sold, then they do put all their focus on drug companies. They're making trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
And we come along and we say, oh, well, take a little magnesium. It can help you out. That's them's fighting words.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, we're in a very precarious position, so that's why we're being very careful and
we're only talking about how to feel healthy. We're only talking about feeling healthy. Nothing to do with disease. Oh, we're not qualified for that area of life. We don't know nothing about disease. Mm-hmm. But we know how to make you feel good so you think you're healthy at least and feel healthy.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think even providing provocative information that provokes people to thought, to consider what's really going on and to take the action that they need to take in order to protect themselves and protect their health no matter what. Mm-hmm. Protect your health no matter what.
Yeah, so the bottom line with this elderly being disabled, etc., is you really have to get your parents on the formulas. You have to indoctrinate them so that, heaven forbid, if they do have to go to the hospital, they know to bring along their Remag and Remite and put it in their drinking water, or as soon as we finally get our Remag lotion, to slather that on. You have to have a plan. And we have many reports of people who do just that, and people are getting out of their dementias, their diagnosed dementias, just by taking. No, they're not. We don't treat disease. People are getting more energy and getting healthier and being able to walk around freely by getting their proper nutrients.
They're forgetting they have some kind of so-called disease. We create amnesia about your so-called disease problems. How about that? Is that acceptable?
Sure.
Very good. I like that, Bob. Absolutely. Oh, goodness gracious. Well, I mean, at least we have a freedom of speech and the opportunity to share and exchange ideas and to, allow people to vet things out and discover them for their own benefit. And, this is what we do. That's why, when you said earlier, Carolyn, we sell this or that, I'm like, we don't sell anything. We educate. We provide, we create, we empower, we inspire. We do not sell. I don't think we've ever sold a thing. I think we've only gone way beyond the call of duty in making and insisting that people wake the up and get with the program and take care of your one and only body, which is what you do need to ascend. I mean, you can get by without a lot of things, but if you want to stay in the physical, and here's the only doctor on the planet probably telling people that you can stay in the physical, that there is no biological support for actual death. Thank you, Henrietta Lack. And that you can live as long as you choose to live, as long as you've got the basic building blocks. And Carolyn's gone above and beyond in providing those for people, including the RNA drops, which is something that we don't even hardly talk about. So, I mean, we're in great shape. The people who are listening are in great shape. If you're on all the formulas, if you're not, get on them. And then, like Carolyn said, get your family members on them, get your kids on them, get anybody on them, because that's what is going to be required to protect your health, and that's what you want to do, because you do not want to be darkening the door of the hospital at all.
Yeah, because I've been at this for a long time. I went to medical school in the mid-'70s, and if anything was going to change, it was going to be, back then when things were a little more open. But I thought that the day before I went into the medicine, and the next day it was like, oh, no way. I mean, it was incredible how they attacked chiropractic naturopaths. They didn't even exist back then. I was in Halifax, Nova Scotia, but they were constantly attacking any alternatives so that people, even if a student, I remember students going in kind of interested in alternatives, and they totally brainwashed. They were so scared of doing anything alternative. So there's really no hope for medicine to change. The doctors who are doing alternatives, they are in non-insurance practices, so it's only really the very rich that can afford it. So you are on your own, and I don't know what's going to replace Obamacare. I know we had to, our accountant made us get health insurance. We've never carried it, but apparently we would suffer tax, tax deductions, restrictions, or whatever. They would just take the money out if we didn't get health insurance. So I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it would be nice if people had insurance where they could use it on naturopaths or use it to buy dietary supplements, for Pete's sakes. That would be really helpful. But right now you're forced to go to doctors that just do drugs and surgery and think that they're God. I used to talk about hospitals and medicine being the military. I think it's a new religion.
Oh, yeah, it's been the religion, but then military became the religion.
Well, whatever it is, it's not for us, and we're so grateful everybody tuned in tonight. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Bob. We'll be back next week.
Thank you, Ginny.
Thanks, Ginny, Bob, and Bill.
Psychic radio, holistic radio, spiritual radio. This is AchieveRadio.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AchieveRadio.